Care Hospice, they're amazing. Hospice is amazing, but Southern Care Hospice is pretty cool, and they just call to check in on you to make sure you're doing okay. Because people just don't, like in the West, many of us in the West, we are so oblivious to death, and especially to the effects it has on our psyche. It's like you don't even think about it. I didn't think about it. Like when I went to be with my dad, I wasn't thinking about the week after at all. I was just like, all right, I got to get down there. I got to make sure he's okay. I got to make sure he's comfortable. I got to make sure he's got care. Got to, make sure that the forms are filled. There's a million stupid forms. And I just wasn't even thinking like, oh, when you get back to LA, you're going to be feeling it. I think a lot of people do that. So when I got back home, my wife had a friend staying over, and we were all like, I was like, oh, let's all go to a movie. And then like I hadn't even felt it. It hadn't even happened. And then bam, then just a grief wave, tsunami level grief wave. And it's like, you don't want to be a bad host by like breaking down a sobbing mess in front of your wife's guest. So I ended up, mildly freaking out, getting in an Uber, going to a hotel, which is like, you have this stupid instinct. It's like a dog that wants to crawl under a porch or something. And then, went to the hotel, melted down, just eating just garbage from the wet bar. And then just shoving my face full of food, and then laying down, and then crying, and then like, just a mess, just a fucking mess, laying in the bathtub. And then suddenly, oh, I feel totally fine. That's how grief works. And right in the midst of recording this, Southern Care Hospice was calling, and hospice workers are really like good. They know how to deal with bereaved people. So she's like, everyone has a different grieving process, but sometimes people report starting crying and feeling like they can't stop. And then I was able to tell her, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's definitely, I land in that category. But lately I've been okay. Don't worry about me, friends. This isn't some kind of like sympathy call or anything like that. I'm just reporting in from the zone that I'm in right now. And it's a magical place. And that was one of the things Roshi Joan Halifax, this wonderful Zen Roshi, said to me was, when you're grieving, it's like a window opens up. But we'll talk about this more with Jason Louv. I'm not going to keep rambling about this now, and I'm sorry for those of you who are death adverse, in the sense that this stuff feels like nails on a chalkboard. And I invite you, not just because I'd like you to listen to the entirety of the podcast, but also, I think you might find that like turning towards the fear and going in the direction of the thing you might be trying to avoid, you might find that it actually has the opposite effect than what you expected. That instead of scaring you, it helps you potentially dispel a shadow that might have been following you around for a while if you're someone who's been ignoring your own mortality, which is something I spent a long time doing. So that's it, man. We're going to jump right into this episode with Jason Louv. But first, some quick business. This award-winning episode of the DTFH is brought to you by Squarespace.com. Friends, it's time for you to take a leap into the glorious waters of HTML. Strip off those filthy clothes you've been wearing as you shuffle down the muddy streets of whatever anonymous village you've been mucking through in your world of existence without a website, and enjoy the crystalline, sweet, healing nectar that is the ocean of Squarespace. It's time for you to turn your cool idea into a new website, showcase your work, blog or publish content, sell your products and services of all kinds. What are you, a bodyguard? It's time for you to get that bodyguard website up. Are you not a bodyguard, but you want people to think you're a professional bodyguard? Do it. Why not? Build a website. Get the domain name I'mAprofessionalBodyguard.com. Does that even exist? Let's check right now. It's there, waiting for you to be the first person to grab that domain and fill it with pictures of you beating up your friends, taking bullets. Why not? A website doesn't even have to be for some business. It can be purely for chaos. And Squarespace allows you to do this by giving you beautiful templates created by world-class designers, powerful e-commerce functionality that lets you sell anything online, and the ability to customize look and feel, settings, products, and more with just a few clicks. The main thing is, I have a Squarespace website. You can check it out by going to duncantrussell.com. Rest your eyes on that glorious site created using Squarespace. Remember, if you're interested in trying Squarespace out, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code Duncan to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. This episode of the DTFH has been supported by simplecontacts.com. Friends, I have 20/20 vision. I actually was studied by the CIA because I can look at Jupiter and other planets and see all the way through the atmosphere to the ground. I know about the technologies on Jupiter thanks to my incredible eyes. But unfortunately, my wife's vision isn't military grade, to put it simply. So she has used Simple Contacts, and she loves it because she doesn't have to go to the doctor to get a prescription. She can actually just go online to Simple Contacts and save the trouble. Here's how it works. Using your phone or computer, you can take the Simple Contacts vision test in 5 minutes from literally anywhere. A real doctor reviews your test in 24 hours and writes you a new prescription, and boom, a fresh supply of your brand of lenses is on the way to your door. You don't have to do appointments or waiting rooms or paying for the doctor. Simple Contacts brings the doctor's office to wherever you are, whenever you need it. And if you have an unexpired prescription, just upload a photo of it or your doctor's info and order your lenses in minutes for a great price. They do all the hard work for you. And I've witnessed this happening, and my wife continues to use Simple Contacts after the initial test to make sure it was something that I'd be able to advertise on this podcast. This is vision care for the 21st century, friends, and the 22nd century, and the 20 millionth century. This is vision care for eternity. To save $20 on your lenses, all you have to do is go to simplecontacts.com/Duncan20 and enter in the offer code promo20. That's simplecontacts.com/Duncan20. Enter in promo code Duncan20 and you are going to get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order. As I always say, I don't advertise anything on this podcast that I haven't tested out. And Simple Contacts is a wonderful way for you to save time and money and to get the identical contacts that you are already using. That's simplecontacts.com. I'm back in Los Angeles. My voice is back. If you missed the last episode with Annie Lamont, I'll bring you up to speed. My father passed away on the 12th, and I blew out my voice because of all the stress that was happening around that, which is what happens in this very strange culture that we are lucky enough to have incarnated in when somebody passes away. And I just got back into town. Gashed my fucking finger, man. I was reaching into a box at my dad's apartment. There was a piece of glass that I had placed there and forgotten I was in a complete haze, which is what happens when you go into grief. I guess like right after somebody dies, it's like I don't even know if grief is what it is. It's some kind of weird shock that you go into, and shit gets so foggy and dreamlike, and it's like you're covered in bubble wrap. You don't know what's happening. Everybody's looking at you like, are you all right? And you're like, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. But you're not fine. But you feel fine because your body's produced some kind of, I don't know what it is, shock. I mean, it's like something definitely is released in your body to help you deal with it. It's got to be like that, right? I mean, here, let's do a little bro science here. people have been dying for a long time. It's been really in fashion since I think people have existed to die. And that means that there's got to be some coping mechanism that's sort of burned into us to deal with losing someone from the tribe, the family, friendship circles. There's got to be something built into us. That's what they call grief. And there's all kinds of theories that I've been developing lately as I sort of float through grief land again. This is the second time. My mom died in 2013, and it's a very similar experience. It's pretty much identical in form, in the sense that you end up in this kind of like, sometimes you end up in this like mood that's too good. I don't want to call it manic, but you end up in this kind of like, I don't know how to put it, like you end up in this like sort of joyful bliss state. And that precedes the rationalization for the state. So in that joyful bliss state, I've been like, man, I must be happy because my dad had a good death, let go of his body, is now free of that form and can transition to the next incarnation. And then, but it's afterwards, you kind of feel like, shit, I bet I'm making up a reason for feeling like this, when maybe it's just some physiological reaction that's trying to balance out the other side of the coin, which is that you will get triggered by a memory, seeing something, the growing realization. It's like your mind begins to meter out this truth, which is that you're not going to see that person's body again, and you're not going to call that person again, and you're not going to hear that person's voice again in this incarnation. You'll see them in dreams, but you're not going to see the physical manifestation of that person ever again. And so that, I mean, I can say it right now and I'll almost start crying, but that pops into your head at random times. And then what that does is it just opens this faucet of grief, and then you start crying. And it's not normal like tears that you get. It's like you get sobbing tears. So, but this is the problem with it, is that it happens randomly. You know, you can't predict it. There seems to be structurally some kind of physiological process that is deliberate and underneath the conscious mind when it comes to grief, and all kinds of tricks you do to sort of avoid it. And I think that maybe is if there's any control that you have over it, is to, whenever you get the chance to start crying, do it. If any of you out there are dealing with this stuff, don't like push it back. Just like, if there's a chance to start doing waterworks, do them. Fuck it. You're in a Gelson's, just do it. Fuck it. You're driving down the street, just do it. Fuck it. You're sitting with your wonderful wife watching The Shining, and something makes you think about your dad. Cry. It's okay. Don't hold it in. I think that's pretty much all you can do, is just try to not cry. And then that's it. Everything else your body's taken care of. I'm lucky because of my job. I'm able to like go full fucking crazy right now. So I haven't been outside that much. Yesterday I managed to shuffle to a bike shop and buy a bike, because my other bike got stolen by some demon. It's a different podcast intro, but if you steal bikes, my God, oh my God, better that a fucking millstone tied to a millstone was tied to your neck than to steal a bike. I just can't even, I don't get that. That's a different thing altogether though. But I went and bought a bike because that has been an antidote in past times when I've been feeling low, is to just ride my bike. And so I was pedaling around on my new bike, and yeah, it definitely helps, but it's not going to, it doesn't work. Nothing can work. No antidote. There's really no cure for grief. You don't want there to be. If there was a cure for fucking grief, we'd be some kind of awful alien praying mantis species. You know, like, how sad would that be if the pharmaceutical companies started doing advertisements for this shit? Like, have you noticed random fits of sobbing when you think of a deceased relative? Do you find yourself walking around as though someone had painted your bones with titanium lead? Does it feel as if the gravity of the earth has been turned up? Are you foggy? Do you feel like maybe this universe isn't even real? Then you could be grieving. You're suffering from what doctors are calling, I think my fucking parents are dead syndrome. And we've got a wonderful cure for that. Grief away. Griefx. They'd come up with a better name for it. Sorry. Off the cuff pharmaceutical commercials, whatever. It'd be like, they're not going to put grief in it. Like when they sell depression medication, they don't put depression. It's like Depression X. It's so lazy. That's too Fallout 4. They call it like, you know, like Ambien. You know, it helps you sleep. Ambien, it sounds like ambient lighting. It just sounds relaxing. Viagra, it sounds like vitality. So something that helps you stop grieving, it's going to be the opposite of grief. So it's like, it'd be like, Joydle. No, that doesn't sound right. Joyara. Try some Joyara. It will help you stop grieving. Joyara. It will cover your chakras with a metaphysical tar and make it so that not only the feelings of grief, but all feelings related to the impermanence of the universe don't make it up to your brain. Your body will still feel them, but your brain will be free and clear. So, yeah, it's also one of those things where, you know, there's a story, and I cannot remember if this is a story of Buddhism or a Hare Krishna story or a Hindu story, but there's a story, I think it's a Buddhist story. I just can't remember. Maybe it's a Buddhist story. Who knows? These are all just stories anyway. Make up a religion, say it's a story for that. Make it a Superman story. We'll make it a Superman story for this case. But there's a story about Superman, where Superman was in a village, and there was a grieving woman who had lost her child, and she was crying and crying. And Superman said to the woman said to Superman, "Can you? I don't know how to stop this pain. Is there anything you could do to make me stop weeping?" And Superman said, "Well, there is something that can be done, and it's a thing that you can eat. All you need to do is the main ingredient is a grain of rice, and I want you to go door to door through the village and surrounding villages, and when you find the villager who has never lost anyone in their life, get a grain of rice from them and cook a meal and eat it, and that grain of rice will make you no longer suffer." And obviously she goes from village door to village door and begins to slowly realize that it is a universal phenomena that we lose our loved ones, and that her suffering is not isolated. Her suffering, she doesn't have to suffer alone. This is the other problem, is that people are grieving. I'm lucky. I have a community. I'm friends with some hilarious comedians when I need like completely irreverent conversations about losing a father. And I'm also connected to people who have a lifetime of done a lifetime of spiritual work when I need to talk about the sorrow, and then also have a great fucking therapist. So I'm lucky, but some of you out there, I think you carry your grief alone, and that is not smart or good, or that's not going to do much for you, health wise. And also you're sort of, one of the things that happens is you start connecting with other people who have lost someone recently, and you all start comforting each other, and you can all just call and be like, holy fucking shit, is this happening to you? Are you feeling this? And they'll tell you like, yeah, I just, took my dad's stuff to the Goodwill, and I feel like I'm like destroying him. Stuff like that. And you could say, no, you're not, or whoa, holy shit. Or just listen. It's better to just listen. The last two made up responses maybe aren't the best, but the best thing is just to do whatever it is that you feel like doing, as long as the intention behind it is to comfort. So then this podcast that you're going to listen to today might make you slightly uncomfortable, because it's about death, and more than likely the next few podcasts are going to have something to do with death. And I know, man, I was just at the last Ram Dass retreat, which was about death, and I felt like they were setting me on fire every time they talked about death, because I guess I was not in close I had tricked myself into thinking I wasn't in close proximity to some imminent death, which is a really easy trick to pull on yourself. But now that it's happened and I'm sort of like in it and dealing with it and feeling it, I wish I could go back in time and like sit through that retreat again. But it makes sense, it makes sense to have an aversion towards what we think is extinction, especially if you have not quite worked out in your mind how you actually feel about what happens after we die. And I spent probably the first half of my life being terrified of death. Not just like normal, like, whoa, I definitely wouldn't want to die today, kind of, but like fucking freaked out. Like I would try not to think about it. I would try not to consider that my parents were going to die. I would try not to consider that I was going to die. I would be so flipped the fuck out by it. And because of that, anytime I took a psychedelic, inevitably I would think I was going to die. Invariably, I would feel like I would have a death trip. Not every time, but it was like always rolling the dice. Like, shit, I wonder if this is going to be the one where I think I'm going to die, man. And in those days of psychedelic use, nobody was calling LSD or psilocybin a healing medicine that I was around. I was just like, let's trip, man. Nobody had identified that marijuana and these psychoactive chemicals are healing forces in the universe, at least around me. I just didn't have the internet at that time. I'm old. I'm 44. We had the fucking West Henderson High School Public Library. And let me tell you what was not at the West Hendersonville Public Library in the 80s. The Emperor Wears No Clothes. You're not going to find that book there. You're not going to find a book on shamanism, I don't think. And you're certainly not going to find a book related to the potential for psychedelics to heal people. So we were just taking them to get high, and then what would happen is the psychedelics would start doing their work, which is they start showing you things in the same way a great therapist shows you your blind spots. That's what I don't know I'm sure every therapist is different, but everybody has another way to put it. Is a great therapist helps you find your blind spots on your own. And in the same way, psychedelics, they like show you your blind spots. They show you the thing you've been trying to turn away from, whatever it is. And, you know, some people have been turning away from the fact that they were maybe abused. And some people have been turning away from the fact that they're actually not happy. And some people have been turning away from the fact that they're going to die. That was, you know, that's one of my main, in the past, one of my main turnaways. So I would take a psychedelic, I would get stoned, I would eat mushrooms, maybe take LSD, and suddenly I'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. My fucking body's gonna die. I'd see skeletons in the walls, skulls undulating in the waving, breathing walls. Or I'd be hovering above a cemetery watching as my parents put my coffin into the ground. Or I would imagine that I was having a heart attack. All of these various extinction fantasies would come over me. And then, because I was just a kid and didn't know anything about psychedelics, except that they were fucking fun and scary, I would try to control my mind. Because at the time I had no idea that, I'd never heard the Jack Kornfield saying, your mind creates thoughts in the way the tongue salivates. So I still believed then that my thoughts were real and that I could control them. And so if suddenly on a psychedelic, my mind started producing some thought, and especially if the thought had to do with death, then I would do the opposite of what you should do, which is I would desperately fight against that thought. And I would, do anything I could to try to make the thought stop, try to distract myself, try to it's so many dumb tricks. And then what would happen is, of course the thing would amplify. The resistance would produce some kind of amplification effect. And then the next thing, I'm deep in a bad trip, which I have been party to a few. And what was happening was just, there was a sort of healing medicine inside of me that was trying to get me to face my fear. It was trying to get me to face my own mortality. That was trying to get me to look into the fact that, as the Flaming Lips say, everyone that I know one day will die, including me. The including me, I don't think that's in the song. So, half a lifetime spent, a little less than half a lifetime spent avoiding that truth. A lot of energy invested into coming up with tricks to avoid facing that reality, such as maybe they'll invent a medicine. Maybe I'll upload my consciousness. Maybe I'll be able to get my head put on a fresh body. Maybe this reality is actually a dream, and there really isn't a death. Maybe, when you get to the place where you're about to die, you just sort of come to and you're young again. Lots of tricks I've played on myself to try to deal with something that is ultimately completely unknowable. We don't know. It's like when in the video game where you get to the point in the horizon, depending on the video game, and that's it. You're not going past that point. There's just some shitty video games. It's just an invisible wall. You just hit it. That's it. And it can't go past there at least with the character that you're playing. And that's the situation that we're all in. If we were in a simulation, death and the contemplation of death is one of the boundaries of the simulation. Once we get to it, once we get even close to it, we start feeling weird. And then if you face it full on, it's like you suddenly just, you can freak out until you surrender, not to death, but to the fact that you're not going to know for sure. what's going to happen. You're not going to know. You don't know. We don't know. We can speculate. And today's podcast is an examination of one form of Buddhism's explanation of death, which is detailed in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But ultimately, it's a big question mark. And there's no answer to it. So one wonderful tool that I've been using as I wonder where my father is now and how he's doing, and when I'm not looking through the lens of the Bardo concept, which is that there's 49 days that the soul sort of works out karma and has the potential to transcend birth and death, which I really connect to that concept. And I think you'll hear as Jason and I sort of break this down, that there's an obvious connection between the Bardos and psychedelics. But one of the tools that I keep referring to comes from Roshi Joan Halifax. I would like to give a deep, heartfelt thank you to all of my Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for helping to support the DTFH. My sweet friends, if you are annoyed with the commercials, if you just want a commercial-free episode of the DTFH, and if you want to get it before it hits the main feed, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/DTFH and subscribe. No more commercials, just the interview. And also, I put extra stuff on there, including an extra opening ramble a month, at least. So if you want to go over there and hear like the deep details of what's going on in my existence, particularly what happened in Alabama with my dad, if you want to go over there and get access to our Discord server, which is a place where fans of the show can hang out and meet and connect, then I invite you to do just that thing. We also have brand new merch at our shop. If you go to duncantrussell.com and click on the shop link, you will your eyes will look upon completely new, amazing shirts that have never been available in the shop before. And much thanks to those of you who use our Amazon link. If you feel like buying anything that you hear us yapping about on the show, just click on that link. If you click through that link, then what ends up happening is we get a very small percentage of it, whatever you buy, and it costs you nothing. There's all these things I'm not allowed to say, and I keep forgetting it's a very strict thing with Amazon, but there's an Amazon link there. Just click on that link, friends. Just go through that link. Just go through that link and just do me a favor. Go through that link and buy a fucking supercomputer and figure out a way to teleport us to a planet where there's forests and infinite food. Make us photosynthetic. Go through the Amazon link and get the components you need and the machine you're going to use to make every human being photosynthetic and able to breathe underwater. Thanks for using the Amazon link. Now, without further ado, let us welcome today's esteemed guest who really, man, you know somebody's amazing if they like come to your rescue last second. When I realized I didn't have an episode recorded for this week because of the turbulence in my existence, I called him up and he was willing to come over here after moving all day and record this stellar episode of the DTFH. I love chatting with this guy, whether it's on microphone or off microphone. He is a really brilliant human being. He's an occultist. He is an author who has written some amazing books, including most recently John Dee and the Empire of Angels, along with Generation Hex, the Ultraculture Journal, and Monsanto versus the World. He's also started a new podcast, and I will have all the links you need to get to jasonlouv.com at duncantrussell.com. Until then, stretch your mycelial beams of metaphysical plasma into the bardo that connects all of us so that Jason Louv in whatever temple, Masonic lodge, church, or mosque he happens to be meditating in can feel their sweet tickle. And welcome to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, Jason Louv. What the?
You like the cheesy thrift store dog painting?
Oh my god, I love it too, man. And that freaking dog painting, it like started off with a like that. I love that thing so much for so many different reasons, but one of the main reasons is when I bought it and took it home, I didn't even notice it on the back. They had taped a little baggie that had a tuft of the dog's hair and the dog's chip implant. You know, that was someone's beloved dog, and they had like saved a little bit of the dog's hair and like the thing that was in the GPS track, whatever the thing is, where if they find it, you know. So not only had the dog died, but clearly the owners had died, because you know you don't give away your precious dog picture with your sealed tuft of dog hair in it unless you've also died. That's why I love thrift stores. Jason Louv, welcome to the DTFH.
What's up?
What's up? You know, like thrift stores are, you know, I was talking to guys, just so you know, I was texting Jason last night. I had a little bit of a podcast drought because, as many of you know, my father passed away. I'm grieving right now. I'm a little fucking crazy. And, because of that, I didn't, like, I suddenly just ran out of podcasts. And I realized that, like, oh my God, I need to start recording podcasts. And so I texted Jason, was like, can you do a podcast with me this week?
It is I. I have returned. Hello, everyone in Duncan Trussell universe. I love you all very, very deeply. And thank you so much for welcoming me back to this incredible space. And I'm happy to be back with Duncan in this shared universe with all of you.
Jason, thank you so much, man. Like Jason asked me, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, death. Let's talk death. Because like, and I'll start with this, man. Roshi Joan Halifax said this beautiful thing to me after my mom died that I'll never forget, which is, right now a window has opened for you. When someone you love dies, a window opens. And it doesn't stay open. It shuts. In other words, the heartbreak that comes from death, or this is how I interpreted it, the heartbreak that comes from death opens up or connects you to the transcendent in a way that nothing else does. And in particular, what I've heard is that there is a certain number of days that a soul goes through these bardo realms in Tibetan Buddhism.
That's right. 49 days.
It's 49 or 39?
49.
49 days. So can you just sort of walk me through the Tibetan Book of the Dead?
Absolutely. So, the bardo. Okay. Let's start from brass tacks, right? Enlightenment. So what is enlightenment? It depends on who you ask. If you ask the Buddhists, the Tibetan Buddhists, enlightenment is understanding that everything is empty and impermanent. Right? So what do I mean by this? 2,500 years ago, 2,500 years ago, or maybe it seems like 2,500, you know, it could have been yesterday. It's outside the circles of time. It doesn't matter when it happened, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, in linear time, 2,500 years ago, in Sarnath in India, the Buddha meditated under a tree for 7 years to attain enlightenment. Upon his enlightenment, he realized something that nobody, at least in recorded history, had realized before, which is the true nature of the self. Prior to the Buddha of course, meditation had been massively practiced all over the Indian subcontinent. And of course, all of the Indian yogis and the sadhus, and all of them, right? They all have different techniques. Most of the Vedic techniques relate to focusing on shapes, focusing on kundalini, parts of the spine, focusing on things, but moreover, largely rely on the metaphysics of the idea that there is a true self that can be attained, or Atman, right, in Sanskrit.
Okay.
So the Atman in Hindu magical thinking is the core unbreakable isness of a being.
That's Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. It cannot be burnt. It cannot be cut. It cannot be withered by the wind. It has never come into being, will never come into being. It does not exist. That thing, right?
That's the one.
Okay.
So if I were to describe Atman, it would be something like the fact of even existing at all. Just the fact that this is happening, right? It's similar to Kether in the Kabbalah.
Okay.
Right, Godhead, right? So, but Indian metaphysics, Vedic
Wait,
metaphysics...
hold on, sorry. I did that thing. I'm very sorry. I did the thing where I go, okay, Kether in the Kabbalah. I don't Wait. Describe it. Kether, is that that's the very top part of the...
Yes.
The tree of life.
Yes.
And so that's the sort of, what's the word? The monad.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, got it. So it's the
number one, right? The first Sephiroth.
So okay, the Atman and the Kether. I thought there was a difference because isn't the Atman differentiated? Like, isn't there like the individual soul, the Atman, and then the para Atman, which is the
yes. Well, here we get into the fun thing of Vedic metaphysics, where it ultimately, when you chase Vedic metaphysics to their as far as you can go, you get the answer, it depends on who you ask. Okay. Because India has this very interesting thing going on where, depending on who the local guru is, the local guru determines reality, and his might be different from the guy down the road. But in India and in Advaita Vedanta, or Sanatana Dharma, there's kind of this understanding of truths can coexist. I call it multivalent truth. That's my phrase for it. Right? It's like reality can be different. And that's okay. And that's why in India, for instance, there are more religions in India than the rest of the world put together.
Right.
Right. So, and that's why Hinduism has survived for so long, because it's not actually a belief system, and it just absorbs whatever comes at it. It's like, so the Christian missionaries, it's like, oh, you worship, the Jesus Deva, right? Or Muslim, Islam, things like this. Hinduism is very good at it's not exactly absorbing other faiths. It's seeing the truth in them, right?
There's the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, whatever you have faith in, there I will be. It's something along those lines. So, I don't remember the exact, I don't have it memorized. It's something on the lines of, if you, that thing that you're devoted to, what you're devoted to, that's God. You're the thing. If like, I am so merciful, then instead of making you find me, I will be inside of everything you love. But I'm not going to be like, hey, it's me, God, here in the fucking PlayStation.
Right.
I'm just going to let you connect in this way right now until you over the course of millions and millions of incarnations, begin to realize, wait a minute, it's not the PlayStation.
Right.
It's something, there seems to be something behind the PlayStation. There's something behind the muscle car. There's something behind the dollar.
Well, this is animism, right? Which is close to shamanism. But Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma in specifically is that, right? It's the recognition that everything is God. Yeah. And everything's okay because everything is God. Yeah. Right. Now, the further we get into this conversation, the further we stray into delusion.
Oh yeah? Help me. Yeah. How so?
So here's where Buddhism comes in. So the Atman, right? The idea that there is a core self or a God or a true self or a true divinity. And of course, in Hinduism, the idea is that there are many, every conscious being in a sense is, has an Atman, and
Yes.
Atman equals Brahman. So the God in everything is equal to the God of everything, right?
Yes.
It's like everything is God,
Yes.
right? So the enlightenment of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree in Sarnath, he sees through this. He sees through the whole game.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you look at any of the religions in the world, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, all that, they all posit the monad. They all posit that there is some type of divine oneness, one taste, as they say.
Yeah.
The Buddha realizes you've all been looking for something that doesn't exist. All these yogis have been sitting all over India trying to focus on tattvas or images or doing pujas, rituals, or focusing on kundalini, things like this, and none of this is real. It's all fabrication. Why is it not real? It's not real because they're looking for essence, right? They're looking for something that is essentially true. So here's what the Buddha realizes. There is no such thing as a true self. There's no core of any being. The Atman does not exist. It's Santa Claus. Why is this? Now, this, I feel, is like the discovery of quantum physics or something. It's a gigantic leap, or the discovery of what do they call that? Fractional reserve banking, or it's
Maybe
like
the theory of relativity.
right. It's a discovery in spirituality, regardless of whatever sect or religious thinking. It's not about religions. It's a discovery in the field of consciousness that is a massive quantum leap for humanity, and that we're still struggling to catch up with centuries, millennia later. Basically, what he says is this. And by the way, the whole of Western philosophy since the 1700s, since Hume and Berkeley, and Western philosophy is still struggling to catch up with this, right? What the Buddha realized 2,500 years ago. So he realizes that there's no core self. What there is interconnections between beings.
Right.
Right. There's
That's
no
called
essence.
interdependency. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this on your podcast before, but we're having this moment where we're talking, but this moment would not be happening if we were not both here discussing it, and everyone listening out in the multiverses was not here listening to this, right? Without you, the listener, and you, Duncan, the host,
Yeah.
and the millions of people potentially, who could hear this moment would not exist. Therefore, it's not a function, like I'm talking right now, but this is not a function of some essential core Jason, right?
Right.
I'm playing a role right now. The role is determined by the network, right?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Well, yes, it does make sense. It's like it kind of reminds me of the jeweled net of Indra, or we're all being rippled. We're ripples. We're being rippled, and I guess one cool way I've heard it described. Jack Kornfield talks about this. He says, some Buddhist monk was meditating and having all these crazy experiences. He's becoming telepathic. He could levitate, whatever. He's setting tigers on fire. I don't know if that's true. I'm adding that on. He's got powers. And so he goes to this master and he says, he's describing man, I've been dude, I'm setting tigers on fire now. That's how fucking powerful. I'm having visions. I'm seeing the entities. I'm seeing the gods. I talked to Indra.
Right.
And the master said to him, "Oh, that's great, but you've missed the mark here a little bit, because the question isn't what's happening. The question is, who is it happening to?" And that seems to be the one of the questions that is answered in Buddhism in a way that for an individualist can be infuriating,
deeply unsettling, terrifying.
Yeah.
Right? So Indra's net, right? So let's talk about Indra's net. So the Hindu concept of Indra's net is that all the consciousnesses in the world are connected in like this giant, imagine like a blue lit up blockchain type pattern connecting all consciousnesses. The Hindu view on this is that it's the nodes that are important, right? So you get just imagine a giant net, like a glowing blue net in infinity. And the points on the net, the connections between the lines, those are consciousnesses, right? Those are Atmans.
Yes.
Those are, and the Atman is conscious. It is consciousness, and each individual consciousness is God.
Yes.
And in its own way is the totality.
It's the soul of a butterfly, the soul of a caterpillar, the soul of a I don't know, like a single-celled organism, a bacteria, to the soul of like the Dalai Lama, to the soul of some as of yet uncontacted hyper through the gods themselves. Like It's like every soul is like sort of like photons coming out of the sun, and so okay,
right. This is the Hindu theory, Indra's net.
Yes.
So the Buddha looks at Indra's net, and it's basically the same topography, but he says it's not the nodes, it's the connections.
Yeah.
The nodes are an optical illusion created by the network. You only have the illusion that you're a separate self because it's a point. You're a point at which a network converges.
Cool.
Right.
Cool. Yeah.
So this is the diagnostics of the Buddha, right? It's like we think that we think we exist and therefore we suffer, right? But we think that there's something essentially true about reality, but there's not. The important distinction here also is this is not nihilism. It's not nothing is real. It's that everything is empty of inherent quality, meaning non-essentialism. There's no essential one true Duncan. There's no essential one true Jason.
Right.
There's no essence of anything. There's no monad. There's only infinite connection, right? Now, this is spiritual maturity, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So the Tibetan Buddhists call this the clear light, the perception of the primary clear light, understanding the essential non-existence of everything. Now, to ground this in my life, the way that I've experienced this is on DMT. Right? So December 21st, 2012, I did a tremendous amount of DMT while engaged in sexual antics with multiple people.
Wow.
Because what do you do on December 21st, 2012? You got to go out with you got to go out in style,
Who humps on DMT? I've never tried that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's tricky. It's actually you can't quite do them at the same time.
Yeah, but, I mean, it seems real, but I guess it's, man, I don't know how, the last thing I'm thinking when I'm on DMT is about sex, because you're so pulled into this. Whoa, what is that like?
Well, you don't have consciousness of your body anymore. So basically the sex part stops during the DMT experience.
Okay. But in between, you're having sex.
It's more about the environment in which the DMT is experienced, right?
So it's like you were at some DMT orgy or something?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, cool.
Why not?
You were ready for the apocalypse, man.
I'm me. It's 2012. What are you going to do?
Did you think the world was going to end?
I just wanted to show up and see what happened,
Okay.
It was like, so it's New York, looking out over the skyline. But in the DMT space, I had the experience of perceiving the fundamental emptiness of everything. And I described it recently in a podcast I did with Bailey J as nothingness but shining. And what I realized was the self obviously doesn't exist, but the self is also a burden and is a source of suffering. The French call the orgasm the little death, right? But what I realized in the DMT trip is that death is actually the big orgasm, right? The relinquishing of a self. The relinquishing of the idea that you have an individual self is the ultimate orgasm. It's the perception of emptiness and the fundamental clear light of existence, right?
Right.
Oh, if there's nobody there to suffer, there's no suffering, right? It's an optical illusion.
Yeah.
Now, let's take this out of my wacky life and back to 2,500 years ago. The Buddha had this insight. This was his enlightenment. And, of course, this drove everyone in India crazy because it was heretical. Buddhism is a Hindu heresy. But...
yeah, and in fact, you know what? Let me tell you. Let me just add to that. I've spoken with... you know, and when I say... this is not all Hare Krishnas. It's not all people who are... into Vaishnava Bhakti Yoga. But, you know, like all religion, and Vaishnava Bhakti Yoga is the name for ISKCON, which is the Hare Krishna movement. And ISKCON is one branch of Vaishnava Bhakti Yoga, which has many branches. But I remember speaking with a member of ISKCON, maybe listening to a talk they were giving, and they were saying Buddhism is spiritual suicide. And I believe, they have a name for it, Mayavadi or something. There's a name for the Buddhist. It's not good, but it's like that by allowing yourself to be, this is just to underline what you're saying here about there being a stigma in some branches of Hinduism, not all of them, in some branches of Hinduism. And also in the branches tend to be fundamentalist. Like what I love about the Ram Dass retreats that I go to is that here we have, and I'm one of them, devotees of Neem Karoli Baba. We have Bhakti Yoga. We have Bhaktis there. And then we have matter, the Bhakti love, like that. I want to be a soul so I can love you. I want to be an identity so I can connect to you from my specific Atman to your Atman. And yeah, sure, it's a fucking impermanent web that maybe will over millennia disassociate. But right now, this is love, man, and I want it. So he takes that, and he takes people who are very good at articulating Bhakti Yoga and way better than what I just did, and he throws them in with like Zen Buddhists, like Roshi Joan Halifax. He puts them on stage together. You know, Robert Thurman, he puts Robert Thurman, Ram Dass is on stage with Robert Thurman at the last retreat, which was about death. And what I loved about it is Robert Thurman gets on stage and he said so. The first thing out of his mouth as they're introducing him for the first other retreat, he's like, I cannot do a Robert Thurman and Bob Thurman impression. I wish
love
I
that
could.
guy.
But he's like, be here now. What does that even mean? He's like, practice, practice, practice. Everyone's talking about practicing, practicing, practicing. He's like, I'd like to see somebody play for once. It was so, right at the beginning of the retreat. Just puncture, like cutting through all the like congealed nonsense and like trying to find the pure like isness. So anyway, what I'm saying is, yes, in Hinduism, some forms of Hinduism, Buddhism is stigmatized. But certainly not all forms. And bringing the two together and watching the way they interact is one of the most...
oh, it's hilarious.
Hilarious, sweet things, especially when on both sides there's love.
Right.
So, continue.
Yeah, and these are games that have been played for thousands of years.
Yes.
Right? And remember, I mean, I started my spiritual training, not started, but... I trained as a shaman in Nepal, and the Nepalese merged them both. Right, Hinduism and Buddhism are seen as create this like psychedelic megazord.
Oh, what?
And or what's that called in Power Rangers?
Oh, okay, cool. Damn it, God! I'm glad it's Power Rangers, but I was praying that you had just added to my lexicon of some fucking new spiritual term called megazord.
Power Rangers, yeah, it's not Sanskrit. So 2,500 years ago. People start practicing Buddhist techniques and people start waking up out of the dream of their individual suffering all over northeastern India. Oh, I thought that I was a suffering woman whose child had died and that I would be in that utter grief for all the rest of my life, and that there would be nothing but grief and suffering. You sit down and meditate for 10 days. Vipassana is a good way to do it.
Sure.
And Buddhist meditation is, you're not trying to get anywhere. You're just sitting with yourself. That's it. That's it. You're not imagining gods. You're not focusing on trying to become something that you're not. You're not trying to, become more pure. You're not trying to become more spiritual. You're just sitting with the feeling that you try to get away from all damn day long, right? Whether it's through Xbox or what, drugs, whatever, work, drama, interpersonal drama. That's a big one. Whatever it is that you do to get away from the feeling. So Buddhist meditation is sitting with the feeling until you notice that the feeling is changing of its own accord, and the fundamental nature of everything is change and is impermanent and is emptiness, and the whole dream of your life that you thought was real was just a dream until you wake up and say, oh yeah, I thought I was a woman whose child has died and everything was suffering, but it was just a dream. And now I'm awake. And people all over northeastern India started doing this until the whole damn mass of northeastern India was awake. Right? That's the first turning of the Dharma.
Wow.
Things got crazier from there, historically speaking, because then we got the Muslim incursions into India, and there was the Mughal invasions and things like that. And the history is insane.
It kind of makes me think of this very, very long virtual reality experience that had been going on so long people forgot they were doing virtual reality, and then all of a sudden a huge swath of the player characters began to realize, wait a minute, I'm not sure that actually, hold on, I'm not actually Kratos, the god of war. Hold on a second, wait a minute, who's playing this? Who's pushing the buttons on this thing? What am I really? And then there's that popping out. I like to think of it as some kind of it's like we're these amnesic spiritual amphibians that pop in here, and when we pop in we assume an identity, and when we pop out we this is what I used to think, actually. Now I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was using the term over there, and I used to use that term too, the spirit world over there. It's like there's a place, there's some perimeter, you cross the veil, you pass through the veil, there's the spirit world, or there's the whatever the thing. These days I've been thinking more in terms of, and I said this to another friend, he said, don't call it a meat snorkel, but I've been thinking in terms of meat. So it's it sounds like a dick. But I've been thinking in terms of a meat snorkel, which is that we're this appendage that is protruding into matter, and in the way that a snorkel sticks into the air so that you can exist for a little bit of time under the sea, And similarly, we've protruded into this realm, and we have this experience, but we start thinking we're the fucking snorkel, right? That's in fact part of the experience. You think you're the snorkel. You forget there's this thing underneath. I guess a better way to put it would be you have the mushroom that grows from the mycelial network, or there's a million different ways of expressing this very temporary thing that seems to have with it a bunch of qualities. And one of the qualities are identification with the self, identification with the body, identification with the mind, identification with the thoughts, and an amnesic state, or an inability to access the matrix of emptiness, whatever you want to call it, the network, the grid, the singularity, the whatever source, as some say, the monad, not an inability, but some difficulty because of our fixation on the self.
Well, let's take the meat snorkel, right? I mean, let's go with that one.
Let's take the meat snorkel. Who took my meat snorkel? I had the worst snorkel.
That's a good of a metaphor as any, right?
Would that work? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go on a fucking weird, stupid tributary, but like, if you took like a big chunk of sausage and baked it and then like drilled a hole through it and formed a snorkel, you theoretically could swim around sucking air through salted meat. Fucking horrible.
I love coming to Duncan's house. It's great here.
How pissed would you be if you're swimming and you look over and there's just a fucking salami sticking out of the water and some assholes, like, just the whole fucking, the air just stinks of pepperoni and coral reef.
I like the phrase pork snorkel. It's got a certain ring to it.
Pork snorkel. Porkle. The worst invention ever made. And now, a quick word from our sacred sponsor. This episode of the DTFH is brought to you by Stamps.com. These days, you can get practically everything on demand, except for love and enlightenment. You've got to find that yourself and open your heart to it. But almost anything else, you can get it on demand. Did you know that you can even get postage on demand? All you need is Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can access all the services of the post office right from your desk. Buy and print real U.S. postage. Precious, delicious, sweet-smelling, beautiful U.S. postage for any letter or any package. All available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just click, print, mail, and you're done. Stamps.com will even send you a digital scale to weigh your packages on. You know, once when I was in India, they actually just put it in their hand and feel the weight and then decide on the postage. You can't do that. You don't have the skill of someone in India. You need a scale. Stamps.com is going to send you a scale. You can weigh your letters and packages and print the exact amount of postage every time. I've used Stamps.com. Stamps.com is amazing. We use it to ship merchandise for the DTFH. And it's just exactly what you think. You print it out. I don't know if you remember the time you would have to schlep down to wherever to get postage, but it was incredibly annoying. And I over 30% of Americans get into traffic accidents or kidnapped on their way to pick up postage outside of their home, not to mention the radiation being blasted at us, not just from the sun, but from within the earth by the gray aliens that live there and are trying to wipe out our civilization. Don't get radiated by the gray aliens by going outside to get stamps when all you got to do is go to stamps.com. I don't want a porkle. So go ahead, man. Sorry. A porkle. We're porkles.
So we're misidentifying, right? We have a case of mistaken identity. We're here in this, whatever this experience is, we think it's real, and we think that we are somehow inherently real, and it's a case of mistaken identity. So this is the Buddhist perspective, at least. So from this perspective, let's consider spiritual practice, whether that's Hindu spiritual practice, magic, Hermeticism, Sufism, Islam, any of these things, right? Any spiritual practice that's like trying to get to something. I'm going to become more spiritual. I'm going to become more loving. I'm going to become more this. I'm going to become different. I'm at A and I want to be at B, and I'm going to make some change, and I'm growing or gaining. I'm getting points somehow. I'm changing. Yeah. Buddhist perspective is, dude, you're grinding in World of Warcraft.
So fucked up. That's such a great analogy.
Step the fuck away from the computer. Wake up. It's just a game. You're fucking grinding in World of Warcraft. You're trying, all these spiritual practices are, you're trying to add experience points to a character that doesn't fucking exist. You forgot that you're playing a game. Dude, you're dehydrated. Drink some water. You've been playing this freaking game for like 20 hours straight to the point that you forgot it was a game.
You're fucking harvesting fucking components to sell Arcanine crystals. I don't know if that's what they're called. I just remember at some point in my World of Warcraft addiction. That's so funny, dude. I can remember being so addicted to World of Warcraft and fucking... Did you play World of Warcraft, Jason? Or you just
a little bit. I did have a massive StarCraft addiction, though, which I think we have in common.
Let me just look this up. In World of Warcraft, there is an actual economy, right? Yeah, fucking Arcanite for sure. And like, and you can like basically use a skill called alchemy to form various.
Oh yeah. I remember this.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, and I don't know what it's like now because I haven't played in a while. I'm afraid to even look it up. I just wanted to make sure Arcanite was a thing, but I don't even want to look at it in the way like a crackhead doesn't even want to look at sugar. I don't even want to like come close to it. But you can like you end up like harvesting sort of what's it called, components, for some weird alchemical metallurgy, I guess. I don't remember. It's been a long time, but you could essentially produce Arcanite bars, I think. And the Arcanite at one point was set. It was an economy, man. And the Arcanite would go up, it would go down, and you could sell that fucking Arcanite for gold, and you could use that gold to buy cool shit. And you're out there. You're if you're me, it's like 4 a.m. and you've been just like your warlock, undead warlock, Dathrak. Has been creeping through this swamp or that place or this place just to try to gather the necessary components to fuse together to make the fucking Arcanite bars. Or you sell the fucking Arcanite bars or you trade them for this thing or that thing. I can't remember. But yeah, like at some point it's like you merge with Dathrak. You merge with the warlock. You're not even Duncan anymore. You're not a fucking Duncan. You're a fucking Dath. You're literally undead. You're in the swamp. And
doesn't that make the game so much better, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's kind of the idea of the game, right? To merge, or even, let's say, even watching a movie, it's suspension of disbelief. Why are we building these crazy virtual reality rigs? We want our virtual realities to be as real as possible. Now they're going to have Magic Leap, all this stuff. It's like, we want to be... That's like the great quest of media, to have an experience so powerful and overwhelming and artistically satisfying that you forget that it's not real.
We want to repeat what's already happened. It's not enough that we're in our bodies and we've identified with this player character. We want to continue pushing into the simulation. It's like, whereas Buddhism is pulling out, it's like, we've got virtual reality goggles on and we're in a game, and now we want to put on another set of virtual reality goggles. And then not only do we want to put that on, but then we want to add to that another augmented reality thing, and then another. So this is like this kind of like infinite, is ingress the right? An infinite pushing into matter and time, and infinite, and in that kind of pushing into matter and time, we're desperately trying to avoid taking off the virtual reality goggles.
Why are we desperately trying to avoid it? Because we don't want to feel that feeling.
What feeling?
The feeling. I am as I am, right? The feeling of everything that you do, the addiction to Maya is to not feel your inherent suffering.
Yeah.
Right? Because it sucks to have a body. It hurts. The fact that we live the fact that everything is impermanent is a cause of suffering. Old age, sickness, and disease, and death.
Yeah.
Right? Everything, we live in a universe in which time exists, and therefore everything will disintegrate and be gone. And the suffering of that is unbearable.
Yeah.
It's not bearable.
It's bearable. I mean, if it was unbearable, we wouldn't be bearing it. We're bearing it right now. We're just pretending we're not, right? Isn't that the idea? Like, the idea is, it's like, so here this is like, all right, here's what we got. Suffering, right? And so you're fucking suffering, man. I'm suffering. This is dukkha. Wobbly wheel is how I've heard it. Basically, like, the way I've heard it described is this. The way I've heard it described, I'm not going to be mysterious about it. My meditation teacher, David Nickturn, told me. Wobbly wheel. So it's like you're riding your bike and one of the wheels is a little deflated, right? And so it's not going to be a great ride. You're going to ride your bike. It's not going to be a great ride. I just, praise God, got a new bike today because some demonic fuck stole my bike. Such bad karma. Such bad karma. Bike theft. Whew. And they were inflating the tires, and I was thinking of Dukkha because my teacher like uses this great comparison, and he's like, you keep it between, I can't remember, I always forget the PSI as soon as I fucking walk out. He's like 70, 80, 50, so keep it between this area. It's going to be a rough ride. So the PSI of this universe that we're in, or the experience itself, it's at the wrong PSI, so to speak. It's a wobbly wheel, which means that there is a fundamental wobble in everything. Every single thing. It's just always a little off. And the suffering, this is how I've come to understand it, which means it's probably wrong, but right now this is where I'm at. The suffering is coming from, would be like me on a bike with a fucking deflated wheel, pedaling around and having this shitty ride, and thinking to myself like, well, maybe if I fucking turn the switch this gear, that gear, this thing, or this will make it better, I'm expecting the fucking thing to not be wobbly anymore. The analogy's rotten because like I could just fill the fucking wheel up with air, right? But in this situation, it's like, well, you have to surrender to the fact that it's really not gonna work out. And which is why I love when my teacher started teaching me, the first thing he said is, I want you to know this. And Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, my teacher, said to me, and he meant this. And I remember he looked me right in the eye. He meant this. This is hopeless. This is hopeless.
Yes.
See, I'm at the part of my life now where that's a relief. I've gotten past the part where like I'm in a Disney movie where hope is like, chipmunk singing about like hope will bring you life and then no. Hope tortures your fucking ass. Hopelessness. Now the hopelessness sounds really rotten if you haven't really explored just how much you've been using hope as a flog. A flaw. You've just been fucking whipping your back with hope. Back! Ooh, I hope I do that. Ooh, I hope tomorrow. Smack! Oh, I hope she comes back. Slack! I hope we'll get forgiven. Smack! Just beating yourself up with hope. Not one fucking second you let yourself be hopeless. Let go of hope.
Let go.
What a great place to be.
Let go. The game is not winnable, right? So here's... Gurdjieff called this the terror of the situation, by the way.
Really?
The terror of the situation.
The terror of the situation. Hopelessness, you mean?
The first podcast I did with you, I told the story about a vision I had of the inherent suffering of all existence. Right.
Oh, yes.
Perceiving the universe as a hell realm.
Yes.
That's probably an overly dramatic way of putting it, but here's the deal. It's just a game, right? Everything changes. Everything is impermanent. Everything is shifting. And this whole story you've constructed about this person that you think you are, the voice in your head that tells you it's a real thing, it's a person, that voice that sits in your head, the one that speaks to you and convinces you that it's you, that speaks to you with your voice, that speaks to you with your name, that you think is you is not you. It's just a delusion.
Yeah. That's good.
It's the fundamental nature of reality is emptiness. It is empty of inherent meaning. And then, of course, that means that any meaning, whatever can be constructed from it, it's infinite chaos in a way, in the best and most creative sense.
Yeah.
But the Buddhist perception is, when you think the game is real, you suffer, right? If you've identified with your World of Warcraft character, and then your World of Warcraft character gets nerfed, you suffer because you think it's real.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Now this point is important. This is something Ram Dass talks about, and it's important. So you and I sit down and play a game of fucking Monopoly. You know, I do not want you, Jason Louv, every time we roll the dice, to be like, this is just a game, Duncan. It's not real. I want you to be like, I'm going to take your money,
right,
bitch. And I, because that's how you play Monopoly, right? Monopoly is not meant to be played in some kind of Monopoly is a vengeful game, which is obviously one of the most hilarious critiques of capitalism in existence
that nobody got. It was actually created by socialists,
right?
Yeah,
it's hilarious. So it's really and it like just naturally turns everyone playing into like either cheaters. Everybody turns into like. Everyone's like looking at like Donald Trump, like, oh my God, I can't fucking believe this. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, it really is. It's like someone pulling a fish out of the ocean and being like, oh my goodness gracious, I can't believe how wet this fish is. What, you fucking think it's a fish?
Right. It's funny how nobody got the point of that game. The point is, it's like, the point is to demonstrate that the game is rigged. And this is kind of the Buddhist critique, right? It's like addiction, right? Addiction is a great metaphor.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Very quickly. I'll finish the point. My point is this. One level, rigged game. That's okay, too. That's okay. Rigged game, okay. Suffering, okay. World of Warcraft, okay. Dathrak addiction, okay. That's the thing, because if we're saying not okay to this thing that we're in right now, then we've applied meaning too. You know what I mean? So it's a perfect not okay, I guess you could say.
Everything is perfect, right? This is my perception. The universe, matter, energy, space, time, as they say. Everything is perfect. The universe is constantly fulfilling. It is like the God is constantly fulfilling our every desire. Like everything is there. Everything is manifested. Everything, all kinds of experiences. My God, just since you were born, how many insanely colorful, psychedelic, incredible experiences have you had just being alive?
Fucking awesome.
It's the ultimate drug. It's the ultimate addiction.
Yeah.
Existence, right? Maya, samsara, addiction.
Yes.
Addiction. Oh, I just want to see what happens next. I just want to see what happens next. I just want to see what happens next. And on and on and on into infinity.
Yeah.
Right? But it's all inherently meaningless. It's just a fucking trip. It's just a light show.
Sure, but it's fun. This is like what I mean. And God forgive me, all Ram Dass people listening. This is my own interpretation, but this is what I love about these retreats. Is that this conversation we're having right now? It happens, and on one side you've got yes, I love it. It's great. Or what Ram Dass does is he goes, yum, 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 which is actually a mantra, by the way. And yum, yummy, it's good. It's and I'm speaking.
Well, it's one of the chakras. I can't remember which one.
It's a chakra, and there's a sound.
Mantra.
Yeah. But I, having now lost both my parents and grieving, it's still like, this place that we're in right now, it's really quite delicious. It's like, it is a game. That's right. It is a game, for sure. And by getting all serious about the fucking game and being like, if I'm playing Monopoly with you, Jason, and I want you to take it seriously. And I would really love to watch your, the in fact, someday we should film ourselves playing Monopoly, because I would like to watch the character that you play as you're trying.
I have a ruthless strategy to I can ruin any Monopoly game, really, because I hacked the Monopoly, right? I figured out how to. I'm not going to give away the secret,
so
but
fucking awesome.
There's a way to completely destroy the game.
I'm already mad at you.
But
I'm already pissed.
But think about it this way: why do people find real spiritual practitioners annoying, right? Or for instance, I mean, let's not get over dramatic, but the whole thing of Christ was crucified, right? It's like, Spiritual practitioners are fucking dicks. They're dicks. Why are they dicks? Because they're basically running around. Like, imagine like 8 people are playing Monopoly, and then Jimmy shows up and is like, "This is a game. Stop playing this game." And just like starts like hitting the pieces. These aren't real. What are you doing?
Hey, why'd you guys crucify Jimmy? Okay, well, we were playing fucking Monopoly, and this son of a bitch is coming around, like, trying to give all the pieces away, and play. I don't know, it's a different game.
It's like, dude, we know it's a game. Like, just like, don't, another World of Warcraft metaphor, griefing. You know the phrase griefing?
Yeah, of course.
So griefing, it's like spiritual practitioners, it's like we grief people. We fuck with people's games till they wake up. Dude, this is crazy wisdom.
There is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita which says, do not disturb them. It's in there. It says, don't fuck with them. They're asleep. Yep. Don't be a dick. It's like, so you see somebody sleeping. For example, my wonderful, beautiful, pregnant wife. She can sleep late. She's pregnant. I think she could sleep till like 10 sometimes. I can't do that anymore. I got a 44-year-old's brain. I got a 44-year-old's pickled burr. My brain just got burrs and cat. It's like, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to wake up at like 6 or 7, and that's fine with me. I'm okay with it. I accept it. I like the morning, P.S. But me waking up at that time, man, to then like fucking like wake my wife up. Hey, wake up, Aaron. Time to get up. I'm up. Don't you want to see the beautiful morning? Don't you realize how beautiful the morning is? God, the sanctimoniousness of a fucking morning person. Talk about crucifying. Fuck crucify a morning person. The fresh dew on the flowers and the piranhas of the fish. Fuck you! I want to sleep like the night. It's okay, right?
Or like somebody running into a movie theater screaming, you're just watching a movie.
Same type of exactly. Thing. Like so there's a certain level of etiquette, which is that if you find yourself waking up, and this is of course one of the neophyte phases. A neophyte who just barely starts waking up will start immediately. Don't you know that everything? I've done it certainly, and that's one of the but then as it progresses, what ends up happening is you find your satsang, which is like people who are waking up and want to wake up.
Oh, yes. People playing the game I'm waking up, but not actually waking up. Okay. That's a good one. Well, we're pretending to wake up game.
That's very Chogyam Trungpa of you. I think that's a phase of it. But for sure, man, because of the quality of existence here, we need a community around us, and even if you are, you at least need to be around people who can say to you, hey, wait a minute. Are we playing the game of waking up, or are we waking the fuck up? What's happening here? What's going on here? What is it? Are we doing that thing where we're like pretending to be up and we're not? That's good. Because my experience with it, where I'm at right now, is that you kind of wake up and go back to sleep, There does seem to be a process happening, and the process is, oh my God, I'm going to quote the Grateful Dead. Sometimes the light's all shining on me. Other times I can barely see. That's it. Lately it occurs to me. What a log. I have a bad voice. Straight trip it's been. But the point is, like, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're not. And what I love is that when I fall asleep, I'm lucky enough to have teachers who let me, all right, go back to bed. You want to go back to bed? Go back to bed. And in fact, one of the coolest, my first contact with the Hare Krishnas was with this wonderful devotee named Bada Haridas. And he had a student, a friend, my brother and I were meeting him, and he was going to read the Bhagavad Gita to us. And this devotee had not woken up. He was asleep. And I remember, like, my brother's like, where? I can't remember who it was. I don't remember which devotee's name he was. He's like, where is this devotee? And Bhattahari Das is like, oh, he's sleeping. If people are sleeping, we should let them sleep. And I thought, that's so fucking cool. That's so fucking cool. Let them sleep. Even if they were awake before, let them go back to sleep.
Now we get Mahayana Buddhism.
Oh, you mean like Pure Land Buddhism? Or what do you mean?
No. So this works, what you just described is a perfectly functional framework. You let people wake up if they want to wake up. It's okay. It's really great to hang out with other people who are awake. It's okay to go back to sleep. In fact, everything's pretty much okay. Now, Mahayana Buddhism, Bodhisattva vow, I will continue to reincarnate until all sentient beings are liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone has to wake up, and I will continue to keep reincarnating to grief these motherfuckers until they're all awake.
Grief. This is not the right word. I don't think it's grief. I think this is a misinterpretation.
Skillful means apaya. Sorry.
Okay, skillful means.
Okay.
Like,
skillful means.
Yeah. Because it's like but yeah, that is the Bodhi, that is it. And I love, I think that concept's so beautiful, you know. I'm still, you know, a friend of mine once gave me what I consider to be a very great compliment. And he said to me, you love it here. And I do. I like this place. I like it. I like this zone. You know, it's cool, man. I like this little, like, whatever this is. It's pretty cool. I know it's impermanent. I'm not attached to it. I'm not afraid to die anymore. I used to be terrified. But it's wonderful here right now, you know? And I love loving people. I'm more bhakti than, but I love Buddhism too. But I'm
Jnana, in case you haven't guessed yet, you know.
I hadn't guessed. I was wondering.
Mental.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, human life is the most precious thing in the universe, really, right? Because in the sense that it's the best game to play. Of all the games in the universe that you could play, being a conscious, at least semi-conscious person in a human incarnation during a time of pretty amazing economic well-being and ability to have incredible human experiences,
yes.
Whatever one thinks of whatever political turmoil appears to be happening, which is really kind of minor in the grand scheme of things. If
Absolutely.
you look at history, it's like a fucking fart in the wind if you look even 400 years ago. So...
people who are sorry not to cut you off. People who are upset about Trump or upset about people who are upset about Trump seem to have forgotten their bodies are aging. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, why don't we you need to be worrying about the fact you're going to get old. What about that? Have you thought about that yet? You're going to get old. Your body's going to get all wrinkly and withered, and you're going to shit your pants pretty soon. Like, and you're upset about the president?
The people who are freaking out about, and yes, Trump is awful, but
Then why are you wearing a MAGA hat right now?
I'm wearing a fashy haircut. No, definitely
Go ahead.
not.
Sorry, I cut you off.
What was my... Oh, so the whole Trump thing, right? It kind of reminds me of people who are tripping and think that it's going to last forever. You're like, oh my God, it's going to be like this forever. I'm having such a horrible trip.
Yeah.
It's like, everything changes. Everything's impermanent. Everything will slowly change, right?
Unless a fascist dictatorship happens, it's like their fear is that though, like, so it's on both sides. The terror is this: one side, deep state takes out Trump, installs spokesperson for military industrial complex / Satanism / some kind of like underground, like, I don't know, like fucking, you know, it's all the QAnon shit, like some like dark, like Hollywood, like perversion, and that they're going to kick Trump out so that they can install someone who is more connected to Moloch. That's one side. Coup. The other side,
You got to
Russia.
do this. You got to do this in Alex Jones' voice.
they're gonna. Okay, I'll try. They worship a fucking owl, fucking goddamn goblin, owl goblin likes to. It's raping kids and setting fucking
we got to get the interdimensional child molesters in there.
They're riding around on owls, shooting fucking lubricant on babies and blasting fucking, and then they're gonna cut. That's like one side, and then on the other side is the incredible, to me, like the thing that really did give me one of those dizzying, like, all right, not only have I apparently walked into a simulation, but I didn't have enough money for like the well-written simulation, or I've got bad taste for this, because this particular video game appears to be written by somebody who is the opposite of subtle, because today, going to jail, I don't know if you read about this, in prison today was the person from the NSA who leaked that the Russians hacked the election. And you know what her name is? Reality.
Oh, Reality Winner?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the United States government just put Reality in jail. It's like, okay, come on. Are you really like, come on. That can't just, the odds, I know the odds of someone like whistleblowing and saying, hey, dude, our election got fucked with. Those are pretty good odds that's going to happen if like someone's fucking with the election. But the fucking odds the person's name is Reality Winner and that the person who's president was a reality show host, it's just bad writing.
Leela, bad writing. Yeah. It's just a game. All this.
By the way,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Whoever wrote it, I love it here. I'm telling you, I'm just saying it's funny. It's just funny in like a kind of like a cheesy way, which I respect. It's cool. I don't mean to insult you. Whoever's writing this stuff, you guys. Yeah,
I mean,
hilarious.
if you have it, America. Whoever wrote the American dream right now, the current dream, the current delusion, the current nightmare is, it's pretty trailer park. It's like good. I love that show, Trailer Park Boys. It's very like Trailer Park Boys. Like Antifa versus fascists and Trump and all the trashy stuff going on in the White House.
Storm of Daniels and the payoff and it really is really cheesy. It's like cheesy. It's very like what's the word? It reminds me of like there's not XXX but an X-rated kind of, it's kind of X-rated cheesy, like simulated sex level cheesy. There's something more creepy about simulated sex than actual sex, like
right.
Low grade porn seems like somehow creepier than actual fucking somehow. I don't know, I'm off on a real tangent. So it's a game. We're in a Leela. This is some kind
of I mean, it's like we look at all this, when you look at all this stuff if you meditate long enough to develop the mentality of an advanced meditator, I mean, you just look at this stuff and it just looks like Keystone Cops. It's like those old movies of, people chasing each other through a hall, opening doors and closing doors and chasing each other around doors. And it's hilarious.
It is.
And the compassion, right? What is compassion? It's like... It's such a misunderstood term in a way. It's like compassion is understanding that everyone is already enlightened and choosing to play this game. And the compassion is, it's like, I have compassion for all life and all sentient beings because it's all an extension of, we're all the same thing. We're all this consciousness, right? Parts of our consciousness are incarnating into really weird games. Right, like incarnating into, I don't know, whatever happened in, the crazy breakdown of democracy in America, the insanity that goes on in various places of the world. It's like human beings play some really weird games.
Yeah.
Right, but ultimately, we are still all this consciousness, which is itself empty of any inherent quality, just experiencing a light show. So the whole thing about spirituality is that it's really not that special, right? Because all that it does is it allows you to step away from the computer, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, right. it allows you to wake from the dream. And in awaking from the dream, it allows you to remember that your suffering was also a dream, but that also all of your joy and your love and everything was a dream.
But here's where I'm confused. So, and this is brings us to probably the last question. 1 second. That's the dog scratching itself. Perfect. It's the drum. Here's my question, my final question. And it brings us back to what we were talking about in the beginning, the Bardo states. So you're talking about this waking up, not being in the video game, not being in the game anymore. But every time you talk about this, you're still a thing. You know, you're acting as though as you wake up and then now you're a, you know what I mean? You're still a thing. You're like, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. But you're still an I. You're still an I. And your description of Buddhism, which I think was really, really good. This sort of the interdependency, the no self. It seems to kind of negate the idea of the soul, and not doesn't seem, it does, you know, or at least like makes the soul another temporary phenomena. So what is it then that is experiencing these Bardo states?
Aha.
What are the 49 days? What's going through that?
So here's where it gets really fun. So I opened up by saying, well, let's get down to brass tacks, and then we went off on this huge tangent about what is reality, what is enlightenment, right? So the Bardo. So think about it this way, right? You're living your life. Everyone's living their life out there and thinking that it's real. And then they die, right?
Yeah.
In the when you die, according to now this is in the Bardo Thodol, right? So it's I believe the Nyingma Buddhism, right? So the first school of Tibetan Buddhism, the original school of Tibetan Buddhism, explored this in great detail, and you can verify all this by reading it. This is how the Bardo works. When you die, you trip for 49 days, right? Because here's what happens. When you're in a body, you're experiencing all these different hallucinations. But as my Sufi teachers told me, as long as you have a body, you're able to modulate your frequency, right? As long as you have a body, you're able to change the frequency at which you're experiencing reality. This is why human life is so fucking precious.
Yeah.
It's why human life is so important. It's why human incarnation is the best of all possible incarnations. Because yes, in theory, you could be born as something greater, an angel, a god, something like that. And yes, you could be born as something lower, a demon, something like that. But the thing about humanity, a human being has a choice. A human being can choose, and other things in the universe cannot, right? So as long as you have a body, you have the ability to choose, make new choices and make new decisions which modulate your frequency. When you die, you lose that ability. So think about it like this. Your life's a trip. Let's say your life is horrible, awful. You live in a war zone your entire life, right? You're resonating at that frequency. You know, over the course of however long you live in such an existence, you have various opportunities to, hopefully, to change and transform that energy into something else. People get out of war zones all the time. They, people get out of refugee camps, things like that, or whatever it happens to be, right? Human beings are experience choosing machines. We choose experiences to have, and then we identify with that experience, that game, right?
Who chooses?
Well, ultimately nobody, right? But but this is the previous point of our conversation where we were talking about games. Everything's a game. When you see things, everything is a game that becomes...
This is in Ram Dass's Experiments in Truth. He talks about this is the idea of burning off karma, and it's like it seems to clash with the impersonalist perspective in the sense that. But so what you're talking about is like, and I do love the idea, and the older I get, the more I think it's probably true. I don't completely understand it, but I kind of do get it. So like the idea is like, all right, I mean, I'm coming back. I'm going to become the meat snorkel again. This time I'm going to be I don't know, I'm going to be a Palestinian, and I'm going to be born, and I'm going to live to be 3 because I end up getting shot or bombed. And I'm going to experience just terror for most of my existence. And this in some way or another is going to refine or teach or burn off or help me get closer to source or become something divine. Or it's a perfect expression of the thing. And you just saying it, it's like, fuck that. That fucking bullshit. That's just another bullshit religious rationalization to make sense of the incomprehensible, inconceivable suffering of the world, right? And so the great example that I've heard is like, think of a squirrel in a fire in a forest that just like, it was just a squirrel. It did nothing. It did not. There was a forest fire. The squirrel got burned. It didn't kill it. And now the squirrel's lying on like scorched, blackened, charred ground, twitching in slow death agony. And so the idea is like, well, the squirrel picked it. It decided to be that squirrel. It wanted to be the squirrel. It chose to express. The universe is just expressing itself through that charred, twitching squirrel. And I guess that's perfect, huh, hippie? Right?
Right.
So, and the answer to that question, on one level, and it's really hard to hear, and it's really hard to say, is yes. Yes. That too. But, holy fucking shit. Don't say that around the wrong person. Definitely don't say it on a podcast.
So I'm overcome with great compassion and love for all humanity. I love you all so much. All of you. We are all one being. We are all one consciousness experiencing itself through different locuses all over the multiverse.
Yeah.
We are one being. I love you all. You are all my greater self. We breathe the same breath. No matter who you are, anywhere in the world, breath is the same. I love you all. And we keep coming back and coming back and coming back to this experience because we enjoy it, because we love it, because we love each other. We want to see each other again. We keep coming back. It's like David Bowie said on, I think, Heathen, one of his later albums. Some of us will always stay behind.
It's okay. You could say, I like that.
We keep coming back.
Yeah.
So the Bardo, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, as long as you have a as long as you have a body, you have the ability to modulate your frequency.
Okay.
When you die, you lose your. Let me put it in tripper language, right? When you're tripping, and you have a body, you're a body having a trip. When you're dead, it's just the trip. Right? It's just the energy modulation.
Cool.
Right? The body's not there.
Yeah.
So it's just the psychedelic space. Now, here's what happens in the Bardo, and listen to me closely because this is very, very important. It's actually the most important thing there is in the entire universe. The whole point of the Bardo experience, which is the intermediary experience between lifetimes, is to remember the fundamental primary clear light, meaning everything is empty, everything is inherent of fundamental essence. It's empty of existence. Nothing is actually real.
Right.
It's the fact that we identify with the illusion that addicts us to it.
Yes.
We are addicted to the trip. We are addicted to the illusion, and so we keep coming back to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the Bardo. So, but let's break that down a bit more. So in the Bardo, the soul, okay, somebody dies.
Yeah.
Tibetan theory, the soul leaves the body.
What is the soul?
Well, according to the Tibetan theory, the soul is really an aggregate of various things that think it's an aggregate of... This gets really technical, but this is a fascinating question, right? Because the idea is that the Tibetan view is it's kind of this packet of forward momentums.
Yes, that's how I've heard it described. Yeah, I've heard it like that. Or it's like when you hear any tone or something. It's like you're hearing in a tone all these different frequencies, and it's just it's like sound or something.
Yeah. So if you... All that karma is, right, is action carried forward.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, it's inertia. Think of it as inertia. It's like energy going forward into the future. If you do something and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, it cuts a groove into reality.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you work out every day, keep working out, then you cut a groove, you create a karma of working out that will carry you forward, and it will be harder to stop working out.
Right.
Because you will keep working out into the future.
Yeah.
It's the same with lifetimes, right? If you keep incarnating as a soldier,
wow,
you're building the inertia of carrying the identity of a soldier forward into existence, right? But all that is a matter and it's a matter, energy, space, time. All that is a ripple going forward into the future, right?
Yeah, I got
it's like you do soldier for long enough, it builds its own momentum and it goes forward into the future, and you keep incarnating. I'm in the Revolutionary War. I'm in the Civil War. I'm in World War I. I'm in World War II. I'm in Vietnam. You keep reincarnating into soldier lifetimes. Space Force,
hopefully.
Right? Totally. Now you're fighting Zurg on Planet Trussell.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's what karma is. It's not like this. It's not, we over Christianize it. We turn it into a thing of sin and guilt and all that.
Hell, I know.
It's not that. It's just energy pushing forward into the future. Which stays in motion. It's the laws of thermodynamics.
It's like the thing you're doing right now, you're probably going to do it tomorrow. Like whatever the thing is you're doing, you're probably going to do it tomorrow. The way you know what I'm talking about. The thing you're doing, the thing. I run into people all the time, and there's got a thing. It's the thing that keeps happening, or the blah. I was always this.
Groundhog Day. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, exactly. So it's like, so this is some sort of amalgamation of a variety of who knows what forces pushing forward. And there's some sentience there, right? There's some differentiated sentience or something, right? And it goes into this bardo, this trippy dream state, but it's not quite nothingness, is it? It's still a something, or it wouldn't be able to experience the bardo.
So the bardo. So when you enter the bardo, you're just the trip. And what you experience in the bardo is just your karma relieving itself by experiencing itself as a psychedelic trip outside of the space of the body.
Yeah.
Right? So what that means practically is this. When someone enters the bardo, they're experiencing a series of virtual realities in which their karmas are being reflected back to them.
Yeah.
Meaning the events of their life.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of their karma is now trying to work out in this intermediary step between bodies.
Yeah.
So they're having these kind of virtual reality experiences where they're meeting goddesses and gods and demons and angels and all this hallucinatory stuff. And all that is a consciousness trying to talk to itself, trying to remember that it's awake, right? So Jacob's Ladder is a great movie that really demonstrates this. So when you're in the bardo, the whole point of the bardo is now you don't have a body, and now your karma is kind of this free-floating packet that's mirroring back its own experiences to itself to try and wake itself up, right? It's like a free-floating satellite in the ether.
Yes.
That's trying to wake itself up.
Yeah.
Okay. So
can I like add to this a little bit? Like the one way I've pictured it is like, you know how like in old like medieval times or movies, fantasy movies, the king's got this fucking sigil on his ring and he pushes it into wax and there's a mark in the wax, the mark of Baratheon or whatever. And they fucking mail the fucking thing and you know it came from the king. It's got the sigil of the king. It's this impression in the wax. In the bardo realms, I imagine what may be happening is that your karma is the ring and all the surrounding potentiality is the wax. And you're seeing this impression that you've been making in the human life all around you in the form of like whatever it may be, you know, and that can be really, really fucking horrifying if you were an asshole.
Yes, particularly if you're an asshole. So think about it this way. Let's say somebody enters the death experience in anger and rage.
Yeah.
Well, their bardo trip is going to be anger and rage. They're going to be, they're going to be seeing their frequency mirrored back to themselves. Right. So the whole point of the bardo, the bardo lasts 49 days. And it's a series of hallucinatory experiences in which the soul is given opportunities to remember itself, right? So if you read the Bardo Thodal, it basically says, the point is remember the fundamental clear light. That's what you need to do in the Bardo, meaning remember that existence is empty and none of this is actually real. Remember that it's a game. Wake up. Even if you're not in between lifetimes, if you can wake up in between lifetimes, you don't have to reincarnate because you remember it's a game, at which point you can choose to not have to reincarnate, right? Yeah. That's why the Tibetans practice dream yoga. That's why they meditate in their sleep. That's why they do bardo yoga, right? Because they want to, it's like when you train yourself to have a lucid dream, to wake yourself up in a dream, they're training themselves to wake up after they're dead.
So death is actually it's like a chance. You might be able to jump into a different subway car, except in this time it's not like it's jump out of a subway car. It's a chance to jump out of. It's a chance to let go of this never-ending, ceaseless pattern of reincarnating in matter.
Think of it like this. Life is the ultimate addiction. Incarnating into existence is an addiction. When you're not in a body, you have a brief moment of time in which you can remember that you're addicted to incarnating in human bodies and just stop, right? That's the Nyingma Buddhist kick, right? It's like, that's what they're talking about. They're saying it's like, just stop incarnating. Remember that it's an addiction.
Will you just fucking stop incarnating, Ronald? It's getting annoying.
So, and yes, in theory, you can you could wake up enough in the bardo to choose maybe a more favorable lifetime, but ultimately it's all suffering anyways because it's all no matter what you choose, it's all illusion. It's all delusion.
Right.
It's like you want to take another roll on the roulette wheel, the wheel of fortune, go right ahead, but every single position is exactly the same.
At some point, you got to stop mining Arcanite, right? Now, I want to tell you this dream I had last night, and then let's wrap it up. I just want to hear what you think about it. I had the best fucking dream about my dad last night. Now, my dad has lived a really great life, but a really great life, and he loved life, man. But he was never a guy who had like tons of money. He lived in apartments a lot. When I was growing up, we'd go visit him. Always there was an apartment that he lived in. But that was part of I don't know. It was his karma, and his karma I think was pretty good, and because he was a really joyful being, and it didn't matter that he was wherever he was, he liked it. He'd figure out a way. It was cool. So I have this dream last night. And I'm at an apartment complex. That's where my dad died, in an apartment. I'm at an apartment complex, except this one's on the beach. It's nice. And this is my dad's living in a new apartment. And he's showing me his new apartment. He's like, this one's on the beach. And he would like that. That'd be cool to him, right? And he's saying to me in this dream, he's like, Duncan, these two Asians upstairs are been showing me around. And I see him, right? He's like, I like them. He's like, I don't know if they're Asians or they're aliens. And I look at him, and it's like Tibetan monks. It's like just Tibetan monks, 2 Tibetan monks. And he's like, he says to me, he goes, they keep telling me they want me to teach you how to dance. Right?
That's so beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a cool dream, man. What does it mean?
Well, it's beautiful. What was coming to me while you were saying that is to tell you that I have been, I was trained by the Nyingma Buddhists to read the Bardo, right? So when you read the Bardo Thodol, the Book of the Dead,
yeah,
you read it for people who have passed, and you chant it in Tibetan. And the point is, you're trying to communicate to the other side. You're telling the person on the other side. I'm not going to do it on the podcast, but because I don't have it in front of me. But it's like what you're hearing is like Tibetan chanting. But what the Tibetan words actually mean of the Bardo is you're trying to reach to that person on the other side while they're in the Bardo and be like, dude, wake up. It's just a game.
Right.
If you wake up, you can choose to come back if you want, but you have a choice. It's like becoming lucid in a dream.
Right. Okay, I got
right?
you. Cool.
We're trying to wake you up so that you remember you have a choice. And you can choose to not come back at all if you want. You can just choose to relax into the infinite nothingness that is shining.
Wow.
If you want, right? But also you can keep coming back if you like.
Yeah.
If you like. It's completely volitional. But the point is to wake the person up. So because here's what happens. If somebody's in the Bardo and they're having a nightmare, it's just like the dream state. They're having a nightmare, and the nightmare is that they're being tormented by the karma of the actions of their life, right?
Right.
They were anger, war, aggression, destruction, rage, all of that.
Yeah.
Hell realm karmas. They're experiencing it, and they think it's real. It's not real. It doesn't matter. It's like, this is where the Christians get it completely wrong. The whole idea of like, oh, there's an eternal hell you must go to where you will suffer. Oh, there's an eternal heaven you must go to where you will be eternally, it will all be wonderful.
Yeah.
No. Those are trips. Those are just trips. They're not real.
Right.
Right? The point is, you have to remember that it's fucking World of Warcraft. Right? So, but what happens is, okay, so let's look at 2 different scenarios. Best case scenario in the Bardo is that somebody remembers the primary clear light. They remember that it's just a dream. They remember that this whole thing is just World of Warcraft, and they're like, oh yeah, right. And then they get on with their day, right? They don't have to continue reincarnating into the Matrix.
Gotcha.
Right? Second best scenario, by the way, is that if they can't fully do that, the best thing to do is to chant the name of the guru or one's own yidam, personal guardian deity, or holy guardian angel, as we say in the Western magical tradition.
Yes.
Right? So the worst case scenario, not worst case scenario, but the standard issue scenario, right, is that the person in the Bardo is unable to remember that it's a dream or does not want to. What happens? Okay, let's trace this back. Jimmy is angry. He's born angry. Angry. He lives an angry life. He's a soldier. He fights in Vietnam. He kills a bunch of people. Anger. His entire life is colored and characterized by anger.
Yeah.
When he dies, he's angry. He's angry at God. Why did you give me this life? Why did you give me this life of anger and suffering? Why did I have to kill people? Why war? Why? Anger, rage. When Jimmy loses his body, he goes into the bardo, and it's just the trip of anger and rage, and all of his anger and rage is now personified to him as demons and wrathful deities and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And all the wrathful deities are trying to do is mirror his own state back to him so that he'll recognize himself and wake up. So if he wakes up, he'll remember that he was just playing World of Warcraft, and it's really not that big of a deal, and the universe is infinite and loving and empty, and it's his choice. However, if he does not, now here's where this gets really squirrely. If he doesn't remember, if he doesn't either remember the primary clear light or remember to chant the name of the guru or the guardian spirit, he then must return to rebirth. Now, you remember what I said about frequency. Jimmy has certain frequency in life. When he's in the bardo, he has a chance to wake up out of that frequency, or at least change it, at least try to see through it. But if you don't have a body, you can't really fully change the frequency. You can just try and wake up out of it. So Jimmy's angry in life. He's angry in the bardo. So when he reincarnates, where do you think Jimmy reincarnates? Jimmy's angry spirit finds a place to reincarnate. He is attracted to the world and finds parents of the same frequency. Right? You think about people who are born into war, born into abusive situations, things like this. Now this is almost like too hot for TV, but here's the really, really squirrely part about this, and I swear I'm not making this up. This is actually in the Bardo Thodol. What the Tibetans say is, if you go transit the 49 days of the bardo and you do not remember the primary clear light, and you don't remember it's all a game and that it's all an illusion, etc., and you begin you begin re-entry, the re-entry process.
Yes.
You begin to re-enter into the human loka or the animal loka or whatever other loka you've been attracted to. Yeah. Because of the law of karma, you can't just go anywhere. You have to go somewhere that matches your frequency. But the reason this happens, this is cosmically hilarious. The reason this happens is because the addiction to sex, right? Sure. So now here's Freudian beyond Freudian. I swear the Tibetans say this. What they say is the reason that people keep incarnating is they're so addicted to the experience of sex that they witness their future parents having sex and are sexually attracted to it and enter into the contract. Wow. Right? But it has to be parents that are at the same level of vibration as them, because they're not really able to perceive anything that's not at their same level of vibration. Wow. So if you imagine like the re-entry experience as like a non-incarnated spirit watching this gigantic like porn hub of like everyone on earth fucking. Yeah. And like seeing the ones that are like it and becoming sexually attracted to that, wow, and then incarnating as the child of that couple. Oh, wow. That's what the Tibetans say. I mean, what are you going to do with that?
They're smart. Dude, I'll tell you, once, a long time ago, I had a one-night stand and the condom broke. And I can remember laying there and like trying to send out psychic signals to any soul emerging from the bardo and being like, I guess it would have been too late by then, but being like, don't come into this right now. This isn't what you want. Man, that is so cool. I've heard it described that's a way better description than what I thought it was, because you've studied it. I thought it was like you get chased by demons into people having sex. So my version of it was more in terms of like, you're running from demons, you're running from something, you see people fucking, you dive into them as a form of escape. But what you're describing is like way kinkier, which is more like you're being chased by demons, but then also you see people fucking and you're like, well, what do we have here?
Well, the demons are just projections of the mind, because everything's a projection of the mind, right? Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, how Freudian is it? It's like, is
that why people do you think maybe like one of the porn addiction is just trying to make a better parent choice? Like when we're watching porn, we're just like, it's some instinctual bardo memory. We're like, God damn it, I'd rather them be my oh my fucking God, is the type of fucking porn you watched who you wish your parents were?
Oh my God. Woo! Duncan.
I wish my parents were feet.
Duncan, where do we go with that one? I have entered the emptiness of I have no more to say. I mean, it's the primary clear light of fuck, dude.
Listen, man, you are a really, really wonderful friend, and I'm so grateful to have you, Mom. Jason, thank you so much for this. It was so enlightening. Thank you. How can people find you?
Oh my God. Thank you, Duncan. That was I think we just read the Bardo, but that's got to be the most demented reading of the Bardo of all human history. Can we package it like that? I'm telling the truth, by the way. I have been trained to read the Bardo.
Cool.
Right. So I think that was like maybe we were just reading the Bardo for your dad, right?
That my dad is like, how's that reading the Bardo for my dad? What does it mean? That my dad's going to reincarnate as like porn? I don't like that reading.
It's the remembering of the primary clear light. But it seems to have already happened because you said that you dreamt of your dad with Tibetan monks. So it happened before we ever even had this podcast.
You think that's him in the Bardo, like maybe getting a little bit of extra help? Well, it's because my teachers gave me this prayer to read to him as he was dying. And so I was able to and it was a Tibetan prayer. And before he died, he read the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And also before he died, I taught him Mani Padme Hum, and he died with these Tulsi beads in his hand that came from a Baba in India. So there are a lot of good forces to help his momentum, and also beyond all that stuff, he was happy when he died. There was a lot of love.
Wonderful.
So my hope is that dream means that he's got some friends over there.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Oh, I hope so. Where can people find you?
Well, let's see. So jasonlouv.com. So I've at Duncan's insistence, I've started a podcast, or I'm well into a podcast at this point. You can find it at jasonlouv.com/podcast. And my book, John Dee and the Empire of Angels, has been juggernauting around the world. From what I heard, I think Mitch Horowitz told me it went through 4 printings in its first month.
Wow.
He heard that from the publisher.
That's great.
So, and Duncan has a quote on it. So you can find that on Amazon, and everything's at jasonlouv.com. So you can find the podcast there. And then, of course, I've got a free course on magic that you can get by texting the word shaman, SHAMAN, to the phone number 44222. And all of the secrets of magic will be unveiled to you.
But also, if you call the White House number and say shaman, you get connected to your magic class, right?
Absolutely.
Jason, you're the best. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the DTFH, my sweet friends. A huge thank you for Jason Louv for coming through in a pinch. All the links you need to find Jason will be at duncantrussell.com. Thank you, Squarespace. Thank you, Stamps.com. And thank you, Simple Contacts, for sponsoring this episode. And thanks to all of you for continuing to listen to the DTFH. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to prescribe.